So, JB, did you get the present I sent you?
Well, yeah. I mean, hey, we're 3 games out of the end of the regular season, and with a record of 114-41 versus 110-45, apparently.
Yeah. Well, 73.5%. That's a pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, really? This is what I get for winning the Season 14 Picks contest? You guys see this?
You're a winner. You're a winner. I mean, you're a winner. Oh, sorry, I got an itchy forehead. Well, hey, you know what? For all the flack we take on a lot of things, I got to say, 73%, not half bad. 2% basically, give or take for me, not half bad either. Maybe 71%. I didn't do the quick math on that one. But, yeah, okay, we're not picking against a spread. I get that. But we did pick quality games in each region. It wasn't like we were picking the gimmies in every region. We did, 11 to 14 games every week. And pretty much,
dude. I mean,
it was good stuff.
If you do the math, it's over 100. We picked over 150 games this year.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
155, I think it was. You said 114 to 41, right? Yep.
Yeah, 155.
We have 3 more to pick, right?
3 more. Two games on Saturday. 1 game. I'm not going to use the other finger for you after this thing. I mean.
Yeah, well, North Central might want to use that finger for some reasons we'll discuss on Saturday night.
Yeah, we'll kind of cover off that. Hey, everybody, it's season 14 of In the Huddle.
You know what? You stole my line. I don't really care. You earned it. You got the ribbon and the line to lead us into the show this week. How's that? So anyway, we are going to do crunch time for the quarterfinals. We are going to have interviews with each of the 4 teams, a player from each team remaining. And hey, we got all 4 this year. No black boxes on our little, thumbnail that we do on Twitter and all that stuff. We got interviews with everybody. And are we going to predict games this go around? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what happens. What would your Friday morning be if we didn't give you fresh content? So maybe we won't be picking the games here, but we will be at least talking to players from each of the teams. We want you to be able to hear it for more than 24 hours, and that's why we wanted to do our Wednesday, Friday show split here. And okay, quarterfinals. You went 4 for 4, if I remember correctly, in the quarterfinals this week. So, what was your takeaway from all this? Because obviously you didn't get surprised by anything, did you?
Yeah, I was surprised at how great Muhlenberg played on Saturday. I was just so impressed by the Mules and Coach Milne, an elite statesman, an elite mule. I mean, what a great job. He's really turned that program into, I guess if Region 2 is the East now, it's Beast of the East, man. I mean, what they have done with some of the recruiting and the talent that they brought in to that part of Pennsylvania is, wow. I mean, that game felt like a national championship game. You were there, Frank. You said it was one of the best games. I mean, you've been to 19, remember, not 16 or 17, 19 games this season. And you've been doing this for what, 20, what we'll say?
26.
Oof. I mean, I thought the Hobart Union game we saw back in October was amazing, but this was a whole nother level with the playoffs and all this stuff going on. I mean, we have been really lucky this 2021 season. Now, there may be other parts of this season that we'd like to forget, certain criteria things that have been used and misappropriated, not only in playoffs, but maybe in other places, which we'll maybe get to on Friday. But hey, here we are, Final Four.
It was your place on the stage. It wasn't for me to interject there. But yep, 26 years. But for this season, at the very least, I think it was the best game that I've seen played. And for playoffs themselves, it's the best playoff game that I have personally witnessed, for sure. We're going to have it here in Crunchtime. We will talk about the hosting situation when we talk about the games coming up after Crunchtime. So you'll want to stay tuned for all that. Well, I've said the word Crunchtime multiple times without actually telling you it's time for Crunchtime for the quarterfinals of the fall 2021 Division III college football season. Well, we have 4 games to tell you about and clips from each one of them. So let us start in the upper left with Linfield at Mary Hardin-Baylor. And in this game, 2:18 left first quarter, Brenton Martin gets a 58-yard touchdown pass from KJ Miller. Yep, that's right, folks. A little bit of trickeration going on here by UMHB. Got them a 7-3 lead early. Then in the second quarter, 8 minutes left, Brandon Jordan, 11-yard touchdown pass from Kyle King made it 14-3. Get used to that kind of combination there, folks, because 32 seconds left in the first half. It's Brandon Jordan, 20 yards from Kyle King. The halftime score would be that 28-10 score. Third quarter, 59 seconds left. Brandon Jordan, a 41-yard touchdown pass from Kyle King made it 42-17. And then in the fourth quarter, we're going to show you with 3 minutes left, Gary Ruckman gets a 4-yard touchdown pass from Kyle King. We want to show you that because that is Kyle King's 6th touchdown pass of that quarterfinal playoff game, folks. How the heck? Talk more with him later in the show, but 49-24 your final in favor of Mary Hardin-Baylor. Kyle King, 24 for 32, 345 yards, 6 passing touchdowns. Wyatt Smith from Linfield, 42 for 51, 442, 3 passing touchdowns. A great day for him in terms of stats. Brandon Jordan, though, with those 3 receiving touchdowns. We'll go one by one here, briefly here. I mean, that combination has renewed itself from the Hardin-Simmons game earlier this season that I attended.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, who are these guys who are criticizing the Crusaders' offense for not being good all season? You know, could it possibly be, them saying, you know what, these experts don't know what they're talking about? I mean, holy smokes, air raid, Central. I mean, you're sure Wyatt Smith had a big day with all those passing yards, but man, whoever thinks the Crusaders' offense isn't the real deal maybe needs to change their mindset a little bit, because I was really impressed with Kyle and the Crusaders on Saturday.
And we'll talk more with him in a little bit. Central at Whitewater. In the first quarter, 3 minutes into the game, Brody Klein gets a 25-yard punt return for touchdown to make it 7-0. Central, leading this game. Then 4 minutes later, Whitewater's Tyler Holte gets a 10-yard touchdown pass from Max Myler to make it 7-7. Just 2 minutes later after that, it's Jeff Herbers with a 4-yard touchdown pass from Blaine Hawkins. Again, that's Blaine Hawkins there, JB. 14-7.
Blaine Haskins?
Yeah, no. Blaine Hawkins. 14-7, Central leads. Eventually, Whitewater would take their first lead in the second quarter. With 12:51 left, Tyler Holte with a 36-yard touchdown pass from Max Myler made it 20-14 Whitewater. But later in the second quarter, look at this. Blaine Hawkins intercepted by Mark McGrath of Whitewater, and that would lead to a touchdown 3 plays later for the Warhawk. The halftime score would be 27-21 Whitewater, but Alex Pete finally stepped in to draw distance on the scoreboard. 4:56 left third quarter. Here's a 13-yard touchdown run by Alex Pete. Then 8:54 left fourth quarter. Alex Pete, a 10-yard touchdown run. Then in the fourth quarter, 3:40 left, Alex Pete, a 29-yard touchdown run. Wow, he is incredible. That's 51-21 Whitewater winning over Central. Pete, 32 rushes, 181 yards, 3 touchdowns. Myler, 17 for 22, 230 yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. Blaine Hawkins, 2 passing touchdowns. He did break the record. Tell folks what that record is.
He has thrown more touchdown passes in a single season than anybody in NCAA history. I'm not talking about Division III, II, I, FBS, FCS. The most ever. It's incredible accomplishment for Blaine, and congratulations to him on an amazing career. I have a feeling, there could be a trophy in his near future. I predicted it last week. I'm still kind of sticking by that. Although, hey, how about Mark McGrath doing a Jefferson Fritz impersonation with a big interception that led to a 21-7 lead that put his team on the winning path? I think we might be talking to that guy in a little bit.
Let's do it. Well, we'll hold off, though, until after crunch time. RPI at North Central in the upper right. First quarter, 6:49 left. Terrence Hill with a 15-yard touchdown run to make it 14-0 North Central at that point. And in the second quarter, 11:45 left. Ethan Greenfield, a 4-yard touchdown run. Boy, they're running away with it early here. 21-0 North Central. But Peter Lombardi gets a 3-yard touchdown pass from George Marinopoulos with 5 minutes left in the second quarter to make it 21-6 North Central. But still, D'Angelo Hardy with 13 seconds left in the half, 17-yard touchdown pass from Luke Lanin to make it 28-6 North Central. And by the way, they blocked 2 field goals by Trevor Bisson, at least the attempts at field goals in the half, to make it a 28-6 halftime score. It didn't get any closer in the second half. Final score 55-6 North Central. Greenfield, 20 rushes, 144 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. The NCC defense held RPI to minus 12 rushing yards, 6 sacks they had, and 2 interceptions. JB, great try by RPI. We knew they were really in for an interesting game here, to say the least. And North Central is the real deal.
Well, yeah, they are. And as much as there was a certain fan on Twitter who said that we have been disrespecting RPI all year, I take some offense to that, and to say that, you know what, we have done nothing but support the engineers. And at the end of the day, whoever was going to draw this round with NCC was probably going to lose, no matter who it was out of Region 2. I think RPI had a great season. I think, unfortunately, everything that could have gone wrong in the first 5 minutes of that game did. They lost the toss. They gave up a score on the first possession, and then the Cardinals kind of went for blood. They did basically an onside kick and got it, and then it was 14-0. RPI did not get their offense onto the field until like 7 minutes into the first quarter, and they were down by 2 scores. It just didn't stack up the way that they probably would have or should have wanted. But hey, that doesn't take away from a great season, and all due respect to Coach Isernia and the engineers, heck of a job this year. And you know what? Like I said, for a while now, I don't think anybody's beaten this Cardinals team. So it is what it is, and it doesn't make the East weak because they lost by a certain thing. It's just one of those games where things didn't go their way. Hey, great year, and RPI has nothing to be ashamed about.
Let's go to the final game. Muhlenberg at Mount Union. We have a lot to talk about here. 5 minutes into the game, DeAndre Parker gets a 1-yard touchdown run for Mount Union. The extra point is missed, so it was 6-0 Mount Union. Looked like they were going to prime to run away with this game. No. 5 minutes left, first quarter. Michael Dukowski gets his own 1-yard touchdown run on a 4th and goal play. 7-6, Muhlenberg has the lead. 5 seconds into the second quarter, Nick Deek gets a 27-yard field goal to make it 9-7 Mount Union. But 2.5 minutes later, Mitch Daniel with a great grab here, a 10-yard touchdown pass from Michael Dukowski. Might have given you a shout-out after this one as well. 14-9, Muhlenberg has the lead. We would stay that way through halftime. Third quarter, 6:27 left. The aforementioned Mitch Daniel, 17-yard touchdown pass from Dukowski. It's 21-9 Muhlenberg. Upset alerts started up around this point, but in the next Mount Union drive, we really thought this thing was getting put away as Alex Batista intercepts Plunk But Muhlenberg goes 3 and out in their next drive. One play later, Josh Petrocelli, 53-yard touchdown run with 2:37 left third quarter, makes it 21-16 Muhlenberg. Mount would survive a disaster also, though, when Ray Williams would muff Muhlenberg's next punt. But the Mules get the ball and can't advance it in the next 4 plays. So in Mount's next drive, DeAndre Parker gets an 8-yard touchdown run with 12:29 left fourth quarter. It's 22-21 Mount Union back with the lead. Then Josh Petrocelli gets his second rushing touchdown of the half. It's a 2-yard run for with 6:04 left fourth quarter for a 29-21 Mount Union lead. Another special teams error would eventually turn the tables on Mount, as punter Kevin Olifiers is called down when he tried to scoop up the ball, and Muhlenberg would take the ball over at the Mount Union 25-yard line with 2:35 left. That allowed Michael Feaster to get an 8-yard touchdown pass from Michael Nikowski with 1:20 left fourth quarter, and a 2-point conversion as well, you'll see here, was successful, 29-29, but would still have a chance here to win with a 41-yard field goal. Nick Deek goes wide left. The wind was pretty brutal out there in that direction, and it carried it. So we went to overtime. Muhlenberg had the same thing happen. Their field goal attempt went wide left as well. So that means Mount just needed any score to win. Derek Harvey Jr. gets a 14-yard touchdown pass from Braxton Plunk. It ends the game 35-29. Mount survives in overtime. Braxton Plunk, 38 for 56, 465 yards, a passing touchdown and an interception. Actually, he may have had 2 interceptions in the game, if I remember correctly. Michael Nikowski, 30 for 58, 294 yards, 3 passing touchdowns on the day. We'll have Plunk on the show to talk about the highs and lows of that game. But I'll tell you, JB, what a game. Just what a game. Muhlenberg just wouldn't let go here, even though every time we thought Mount U was surging, they stopped the surge somehow until the very end.
Yeah, and if you look at the statistics, it was kind of like the Cortland RPI game from the other weekend. It was like one team had all these yards and all these stats, and yet they're struggling to stay ahead. And, credit the Mount Union defense, though, at the end. They came up with some critical stops when they needed it. Their special teams let them down, and maybe this game could have been over sooner. But, I mean, Nikowski and the Mules just never gave up. Mitch Daniels, hey, man, I saw the shout out on the touchdown. You have my utter respect, and I thought that was awesome. It was just one of those things. It could have gone either way on this one, and Mount pulled it out late. They have a tall order with hosting the national champions on Saturday, which was an interesting little thing. We'll get there.
That's crunch time for the quarterfinal round of fall 2021 Division III college football season. I know you want to talk about it, but we got one other thing to get out of the way. Actually, 2 things because we have 2
get out of the way. We got to get out of the way here, Frank. Okay, what do we got?
We got JB's Week 14 MVPs, my friend. And here's somebody that looks pretty familiar to me from that last pile of highlights we just saw. Helmet off here, but Josh Petrocelli from Mount Union, your offensive MVP for good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I could have very easily given this to Kyle King with the 6 touchdown passes, but, to me it really felt like Petrocelli's, especially when, for whatever reason, Mount Union decided to go back to the run. That's when the tide of this game started to turn. And Josh had 15 rushes for 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I really feel like there were some great offensive performances in the quarterfinals, obviously. I mean, Hawkins was great. Pete from Whitewater was great. Myler from Whitewater was great. I mean, there were lots of great performances, but this guy particularly in the closest game really turned the tide for his team. So, Josh, you're my offensive MVP. Going to the defensive side of the ball, Kevon Shepard from Mary Hardin-Baylor had 2 sacks and 2 tackles for loss against Linfield. That defensive line for Mary Hardin-Baylor is going to be a big reason, if if or not, I guess you could say, the Crew can win up in Wisconsin this weekend. And then finally, I had to give a little shout out to on special teams. And I don't know if you noted this, Frank, but the Linfield roster has some interesting designations. I'm assuming that Jet Cyril here is listed as an M, is a wide receiver or some kind of running back. I don't know what an M stands for, but he had over 100 yards of returns in the game against the Crew, which really helped Linfield, kind of hang around. They got a lot of passing yards. They couldn't run the ball, but Jet, man, he lived up to his name. He was returning that ball back 20-plus yards every time he got his hands on it. And, in a weekend where we didn't see any dramatic field goal kicks or anything like that, that to me really stood out as a great special teams performance. So congratulations.
I think it's referred to as an M-back, if I remember correctly. It's not the first time they've had the distinction on their roster. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but nonetheless, his performance as a special teamer on Saturday was key to at least try to keep them in that game. But I'll tell you, they just kind of got in front of a runaway train in Kyle King and company in that game. So we have 2 games left for this Saturday, and then one, as you said, for the national championship. To get to the national championship, you got to win Saturday. So we'll start on the left side. It's Mary Hardin-Baylor going to Wisconsin Whitewater. And, we can't say enough about the quarterback for Mary Hardin-Baylor, Kyle King, the 6 touchdowns and whatnot. But just, this is a senior with eligibility left. We'll discuss that with him in a second here. He had health issues throughout this season and in the playoffs. And to come back from that stuff is no small feat. So here's our discussion with Kyle King. Kyle, it's been an interesting playoffs, to say the least, for you. We're going to start with the good things here. I think it was 6 touchdowns passing against really a great defense that Linfield has. I mean, tell us how that developed. Take us through the game flow of that and how you felt coming into that game after missing one because of stuff we'll talk about in a second.
Right. So, obviously missing one was tough. Kind of lost the flow. Ryan played great in that game that I missed. He's played great in every game I've missed, which has actually pushed me to be better. But anyways, back on track. Yeah, Linfield had a great defense, and they ran great schemes. They we thought we could attack the flats a little bit with some bubbles, and we did. And we thought we were a tad bit more athletic, and I think that kind of was the case. They covered guys well, and our receivers just made plays on one-on-one situations. Our offense coordinator always tells us in college football, guys will not be wide open. The best situation you're going to get is a one-on-one, and that's what we kind of pride ourselves on winning those, whether it be blocking or catching or making a guy miss. It's one-on-one. That's what football boils down to.
Yeah, well, speaking of those one-on-ones, Kyle, your receiver, who I still swear looks more like a tight end to me, so I've given him the nickname of the D3 Gronk, Brandon Jordan. We won several of those one-on-ones, catching 3 of the 6 touchdowns you threw. Tell us a little bit of – I was having flashbacks to that Hardin-Simmons game that Frank went to at the end of September. You guys just seemed to be locked in together, and tell us what's going on there. Was that, once again, like sort of these one-on-one matchups you talked about earlier?
Yeah, it's just, we try to – when teams play him like that, it'd be dumb not to throw him the ball, honestly. With him, one-on-ones, we call them 50-50 balls. They're not 50-50 with him. It's more like, I would say 80-20 and 75-25 at the worst. Brandon's going to make a play for you. If you can give him a good ball where he can use his body to defend or shield the defender, he's tough to stop. He really is.
Okay, so, I get texts from UMHB folk all the time. We've formed friendships over the years. And during the regular season, I get one morning when I'm traveling to a game, and it's, Kyle King's got turf toe of some sort, going to miss a game. And it ended up being more than I think one game ultimately that cost you. Then it's talking to your dad, and there's stuff going on. And as you said, Ryan Redding had to fill in for you in the game before the Linfield game there against Birmingham Southern.
Yeah.
What's been going on? How you feeling? What's going on with you? You look like a good, healthy, 20-something-year-old guy. What's going on here?
Yeah. So as far as the turf toe goes, I'm 100% back from that. There's no complications with that. As far as the week against Birmingham, I was pretty sick. Just had a lot of things going on. Had to go to the emergency room twice. Just bad situation, really, and finally got taken care of. But I don't know, I don't have a great diet, and it just screwed my digestive system up real bad, and it was bad. It was a bad deal for sure. Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised, given Frank's always sending pictures of like the barbecue or the Mexican food and the beans and the rice and all the stuff that Tex-Mex y'all got down there in Belton, and might be a culprit. So we'll make sure you're eating your Wheaties and all that other stuff for this weekend. As we transition a little bit, Whitewater is the last team that was able to get one over on Mary Hardin-Baylor back in the 2019 playoffs. Jace Hammock was a QB back then, but you were on the team. I imagine you were probably ready to go in there if you had to. What were some lessons from that experience? I mean, it probably feels way longer than 2 years ago, but if I actually look at the date, it was almost exactly. Well, we're recording this on December 7th, and that game was on December 7th, 2019, so almost exactly 2 years ago. What are some of your memories from that, and what are some of the lessons you guys learned about taking on a team like the Warhawks?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually on JV that year, so I was not suited up for that game. I was in the stands watching that game, and I just remember them. I just remember it being like, even being on JV, you still feel part of the team, and I just remember being such a helpless feeling. And them guys they really just physically dominated us that game, to be honest with you. And I say that our defense played really well that game. And I know I've heard Coach Fred talk about it. They had like 16 third and fourth and ones and converted 14 of them. So our defense played outstanding that game. We just were on the field so long because the offense struggled. That year when we played that game, we were down 3 offensive linemen, something like that, starting offensive linemen, and that hurt us, I think. They were bigger and stronger than us up front, and I think that made it hard for Jason, our running backs, offensively that game. Lessons, as far as lessons learned, I don't know if there's a lesson learned. I mean, a lot of our guys are battle-tested. I think obviously there's a lesson to learn in everything, but I think we didn't. It's not like we underestimated them. We know who Whitewater is. They're a power. They're a D3 power, and when you play a team like that, you're going to expect it to be physical, and you got to make a few plays that aren't drawn up exactly how you have them. You just got to make a play, and I don't think we made enough plays that day, and I think they did, and they deserved to win that game.
You love being the underdog, I can tell, or at least being kind of underappreciated going into situations like these. And from what we've seen, maybe a field goal favorite, somebody's slapped on Wisconsin Whitewater here. We've talked in the past, heading into the Hardin-Simmons game, about the respect level and leading your team back in that second half and everything else. Do you feel like people are underestimating you personally heading into this game and saying, well, yeah, that Birmingham Southern thing was nice and all, but they aren't Whitewater, and he's in for a stunning day coming up this Saturday when he's facing Whitewater? What do you think about all that talk?
I try to cancel that stuff out. I try to stay off social media as much as I can, at least the negative stuff. You see it here and there, and it's inevitable. But I like being an underdog. I'm not saying I don't. I've always kind of took that, and tried to run with it. It's hard to do at UMHB sometimes because you're not always the underdog, so you're expected to win games. But as far as like a player goes and feeling underappreciated, I wouldn't say that. My teammates are very supportive. My coaches are very supportive. I started from the bottom here and worked up, but I don't think that's being underappreciated. I think that's just where they thought I was, and that's fine. That's an honest assessment of what they thought. So, you get that, and you can either pout, and that can be who you are the rest of your career, or you can work and end up being, a guy they have to depend on. And I think that's kind of what I've done. I wouldn't call it disrespect. I just think I was raw out of high school, I wasn't a great quarterback out of high school. I was a good football player. I was physical. I played defense a lot in high school too. So, I was very physical, but I wasn't a great I wasn't a great quarterback. My feet weren't great. I didn't know how to make many reads. I've evolved a lot in my time in college.
Well, one of the things I imagine that's helped you in this evolution, Kyle, and I actually asked Braxton Plunk, the quarterback for Mount Union, this question earlier. You basically played what's kind of an equivalent to an NFL season in the calendar year of 2021. This is going to be your 19th game, I think, of this year. And if you go back and you include the spring games of back in February through that April shortened spring season you guys had in the ASC, kind of walk us through, like, what does it feel like? Is this it's got to be a little bit of a grind, right? I mean, that's a lot of football to play in a sort of condensed period of time. But then again, I guess you could say it's 10 months, so it has been sort of spread out. How is the team feeling overall about it? And, obviously Whitewater didn't get a chance to play. Their North Central didn't either. It seems like it doesn't really matter either way. Spring football was what it was. It was sort of this little microcosm. But are there any things from spring football that you feel have helped you guys out or maybe potentially held you back a little?
No, we were I don't think it held us back at all. We were excited to play in the spring. We wanted to play. I think it helped our offense out tremendously. I mean, you look at me. I started my first 2 games in the spring. I think we started 2 new offensive linemen I know for a fact, freshmen in the spring that played all 5 games and are still starting for us. And this year we added a new right guard that has started for us. So the spring was big for us, I think. We were fortunate. We didn't have any giant injuries in the spring. There was nothing that set us back for the fall. And as far as being healthy going into this game, I think we're about as healthy as you can be at this point of the season. So we've been blessed injury-wise, and we're just excited to get after it.
So you have maximum 2 games left this season. I don't know what your eligibility is or isn't, so you can tell us what that is. But what is next for Kyle King after this season is done, regardless of what happens in these next 2 games?
Yeah, I'll be back next year.
Okay.
And
short and sweet.
yeah, I'll be back next year. I'm gonna graduate next Christmas, so I'll be a teacher, so I'm gonna get my student teaching in the spring. Come back, take my last few classes I have to take to get on out of here. We're actually returning a pretty big amount on offense, so I'm looking forward to it for sure. We're returning 9, I think.
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I've got a very good feeling now sitting down, because you and I last talked with everybody around us post game, Hardin Sims and everything else. You are coach's mentality. You sitting there, you just strike me as a future coach. Is football coaching in your future too?
No, yeah, no doubt. I want to be an offensive coordinator for sure. That's kind of what I don't know that I want to do the head coach route. Maybe not right at first at all. Anyways, I want to be an offensive coordinator, and if the opportunity presented itself down the line to get a bigger position, I might do that. I want to be in the smaller schools too. I don't, we have a classifications. We're 1 through 6A here in Texas, and I would want to be 3A and down probably. So that's kind of what I want to do. I like to deer hunt. I like to be in the country. So that's kind of what I want to do, be in somewhere like that.
Sounds like a pretty nice life to me, man. That's great.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well, we know what comes next year. I gave you the chance to do it after the Hard Sims game, and in the heat of the moment, maybe you forgot somebody or maybe added to the list since that point. So any shout-outs to any family, friends, teammates? Kyle King, the floor is yours.
Yeah, it's been such a grueling year. It's so many ups and downs. I just want to say thank you to my mom and my dad. My dad comes and watches practice like twice a week. He's retired. He was a coach too. My mom's an athletic director, so she's always busy, but she still finds time to come to my games and stuff. My brothers haven't missed a game. One of my brothers is married, so his wife, my other one's engaged, so his soon-to-be wife, and they're 2 little babies. They all come to my games and support. My aunt, I can't thank her enough. She's there everything I do. My aunt, my uncle, my cousins. My 2 best friends from Atlanta, I just have so many people I owe my success to. And, I know I'm leaving some off the list. David Westbrook, high school track coach, treated me like a son his whole life. He's played a big part, calls me every week, talks about the game plan. Jan and Jay Wise, they're my godparents, love them like family, treat me like their kid as well. Just so many teachers here that have helped me. Coaches, Coach Fred, Coach Lee. Coach Lee's played a huge part in my success here. He's one of those guys. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. I don't know if I've ever heard him do one. He doesn't want credit, but he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. I promise you that. And just my teammates, trusting me and, getting on the ship, and we're riding right now. So, one more game to get where we want to go to. So obviously the job's not done. I think we've done a good job of of keeping that mindset. You know, we're not content. We're excited to go play in Wisconsin. A lot of us never been to Wisconsin before, so we're not really dreading the cold. We know it's going to be cold. It's something you have to embrace, and you have to go up there and just play. Either way, it's going to be cold, so we're looking forward to it.
JB, I'll tell you, I got to talk with him after the Hardin-Simmons win, as we alluded to in the interview itself.
Yeah, sure.
And I was impressed with him in that discussion, but I'm even more impressed with him how the football acumen, the self-realization of, hey, I was a bad quarterback coming into college, and I had happy feet or feet that weren't set right and stuff, and to acknowledge he had shortcomings and has improved and grown and everything. You gotta love that kind of introspection and honesty from such a great player as Kyle King.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that in Division III we have a lot of elite academic schools that they're hard to get into. A lot of times it's families with money and all this kind of thing. But when you have a guy like Kyle King, who is just as bright, just as articulate, he likes to talk about, I like to go hunting or fishing or whatever. He's going to teach kids. He'll probably coach football. Like, this is a salt of the earth American that I love this guy, man. And it's one of those things where you can't help but become a fan of someone, and credit his folks for raising a young man like this, and credit the crew, coaching staff for having people on their team when they are this is a badass football program, and they're just so down to earth. It just salt of the earth, great stuff. I mean, love it. Obviously we're going to have to either pick or think about this game. And I'm struggling because honestly, of the two semifinal games, this one I think is the harder one to choose from, at least for me anyway. I'm not going to speak for you, but these teams are so closely matched. There's so much talent on both sides of the ball. And man, it's this is going to be an epic game, and I cannot wait until 3:30 on Saturday when they're going to kick this one off. I think this is going to be one of the best games if not the best game of the year. I can't wait to see it.
Well, if you think you had a good presence in Kyle King from Mary Hardin-Baylor, I got one for you on the other side, or the other part of the bracket, I guess we should say. Mark McGrath, the defensive back for Whitewater, and we showed him in crunch time getting the interception of Blaine Hawkins, which was key because Central kept fighting back, but that led to points that were needed to keep the lead for Whitewater in the first half before they finally pulled away in that game. And McGrath, he who does not, it sounds like, have any eligibility left, talks about things like the unfinished business, and I brought it up. This is not something they like talking about, as you'll hear, but the unfinished business that his team feels from a couple of years ago with that loss versus North Central, but they know they are in for quite a game with an old standard of Mary Hardin-Baylor coming up here Saturday. Here's Mark McGrath.
So, Mark, congratulations on the win over Central last weekend. How does it feel to have picked off the guy who set the NCAA record for touchdowns in a single season? That's quite an accomplishment. Hey, he's in the record books, but you've got one on him. Tell us a little bit about that game and how it went for the Warhawks.
I didn't even think about that till after the game. Some of my buddies were telling me, wow, like you saved it for a good guy. But no, it was a good game. Central was a good team. Definitely gave us some challenges out of the gate, which, a team like that, an offense like that, they're going to come out hot, which is what they did. Got the punt block too. So, but, just Whitewater, we didn't panic, stayed calm, stuck to what we do. Finally got our feet under us. Once we got our feet under us, we felt pretty good.
Mark, I'm curious because obviously I saw you guys in the Stag Bowl down in Shenandoah a couple of years ago. And, the road that you guys had was a tough one, but I'm curious to hear from you because you played quite a bit in both seasons, obviously. Which road has been tougher? Have they been the same to this point? Obviously, we're going into the semifinal round. You got to get through one more to get to the Stag Bowl, but the road in the first 3 rounds at least, how does it compare 2019 to 2021 for Whitewater?
I think each year is different. Anytime you make it to the Final Four or past that, it's pretty special. One of 4 teams left is something to always be proud of. I think in 2019, playing Mary Hardin-Baylor in the quarters, obviously that's going to be a tough game. Mary Hardin-Baylor is Mary Hardin-Baylor. We got Central this year, who was also a good team. They're just kind of different styles of teams. I think Central has really, really good offense. And we were able to neutralize them as a defense as it went on. But, 2019, it's just a different path. But every team you play is going to be good at this point. So it's, hard to compare them, I guess.
And so as a defense, when you're prepping against an offense obviously with a Hawkins Central, they're a passing team. But when you look at the Crusaders, and I was kind of running some stats earlier, they're about as balanced a team left in the field. They run the ball about 240 yards per game, give or take 3 or 4 yards here or there, and they pass the ball for maybe a little more than that. They're a pretty balanced operation. So is the Warhawk strategy to try to force their hand one way or another, like make them one-dimensional and run because it's cold and maybe that'll be tough, or you put the game on Kyle King's shoulders and try to force him to beat you with his arm? How are some of those strategies as a defensive player, or do you consider when you are going up against a team that's as balanced as UMHB?
Yeah, they are. And obviously each week you game plan for teams with certain things, but our kind of defense philosophy is we worry about us. We can put whoever wants to line up against us every week. It doesn't really matter. We're going to play our game, and our style of defense is to, number 1, stop the run, and number 2, limit explosive plays. So, we met yesterday as a defense, and that's going to be our plan going into this week, which is pretty much every week. So teams can try and figure out ways to beat us, but we're going to stay true to our guns and play the way we play.
You came into the program after Whitewater sort of simmered down compared to what the Whitewater of, let's say, old was in terms of winning national championships, hand over fist, it seemed like. You chose, while, Oshkosh was kind of out there at that time, to attend Whitewater. And you can't go wrong, it seems like, if football is one of your objectives in terms of the WIAC. If you want to go to a WIAC school, they all are highly competitive on the football field. We know that now, watching, every year what happens. Why Whitewater, especially when you chose Whitewater? I went on some visits. When I came to Whitewater, first time I came to Whitewater, I was a sophomore in high school, and my high school would come up every summer to Whitewater and do like our own football camp here, and we'd stay in the dorms. And I actually got to meet Coach Bullis my sophomore year. I think with Whitewater, it's just the coaches and the camaraderie around the program. The second you step foot on campus, it just feels like it's a pretty special place. You look at the history, you look at what this team's all about. And for me, and then combine that with the locker room, the facilities that we have, all the resources that we have as a team, to me, it just felt like a no-brainer.
Well, sometimes part of becoming a good defense is getting to practice against a great offense, and you guys have a great quarterback in Max. Pete's having an amazing season, the running on the running back side of things, and if there's a successful running back involved, there's usually a great offensive line. You've got some great receivers that you practice against. I mean, how has especially with the extra year of not playing, the extra practice of COVID, do you think has helped you guys get to where you are?
Tremendously. I think that's a huge advantage that we have at Whitewater. A lot of teams, I've seen teams talk about what they did during COVID. I don't think any teams really did what we did. We practiced pretty much every single day. And they weren't just like practices; they were like get after it practices. So I got to guard Ryan Wisniewski every day, Tyler Holte, Sam Delaney, Derek Kumaro. The best players that I've guarded ever at Whitewater are in practice. And you could say the same thing for the D-line. Mac has to go against Kyle Gannon every day. Ryan Liska has to try and tackle Alex Pete every day. And we really got after it, people going at it in practice, and iron sharpens iron. And it definitely helped us a lot. And it kind of, I think, is why we are where we're at today.
Kind of going off that, I mean, your last game coming into the COVID practices that you're just referring to was kind of an eye-opening game. Unfortunately, you lost in the Stagpole for you guys. To what degree is there unfinished business in this team's mind? And, what did you learn, I guess, from that game that has been so valuable as you've gone back on this road? Because it's not easy to get to the national semifinals twice. You've kind of suggested it yourself, and you're right, it's not. So what did you learn from that North Central game in the Stag Bowl, and what's the unfinished business in your guys' minds right now?
Yeah, our team was a lot of guys like me who in 2020 were seniors and could have graduated, but everyone that could have came back. The unfinished business aspect is definitely there. It's not something we really talk about, but it's definitely a driving force. We all remember that day pretty well. I know I do. I know during COVID and whatnot, sometimes there's days when you don't have that motivation and you just think about that and that'll get you going a little bit. So the unfinished business part, it's something that's not really talked about here because we just focus on us and we focus on, going 1-0 every week, but it's definitely in all of our heads and, we haven't forgot about it.
Well, you mentioned, Mark, that you came back as a number of your, kind of this, we've heard the term super seniors been thrown around out there in some of the D3 programs. You have definitely one game left on Saturday and potentially another one next Friday night. When it's all said and done, what are your plans? Post Whitewater football. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's an extra year of eligibility hidden in there somewhere, or maybe fishing a little bit. But what's the plan for Mark McGrath after Whitewater?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is it for me. I got 2 more games left here. And then after that, still kind of figuring out, but want to go into business, want to go into sales, live in the Chicagoland area, and just kind of go from there.
Well, you've sold us that you are a great speaker and a great representative for your team. That's for darn sure. A true pleasure speaking with you, and we'll see where this goes on this coming Saturday. The Mary Hardin-Baylor game will not be easy, and as much as we kind of joke around about the Linfield Mary Hardin-Baylor history that's there is a Mary Hardin-Baylor Whitewater history that's been forming over time here as well. And so this is going to be one of those classic matchups that we're excited to watch on ESPN 3+, wherever they call it these days. But before we let you go, we got to let you have some shout-outs to any family, friends, teammates, anybody that might be watching. Mark McGrath, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I want to give a shout-out to Mom and Dad, Pat, Mike, Jeff, Jay, every one of those guys, all my brothers. Shout-out Lyle, shout-out Coach Parpet. Love all you guys, and I can't wait to see you guys soon.
So, again, 2 stand-up guys we had there, and one's going to be trying to pick off the other. Yep. You got to love these interviews. We live for this every year to do the 4 interviews if we can get them all. And it's delivering for sure so far in these first 2, and it will continue. Trust me in that. Your takeaways, though, from McGrath's discussion about that unfinished business and everything else.
I think, I have never been fortunate enough to make it to a national championship game kind of thing, and I can only imagine how bad it hurts when you don't end up winning the title. So for these guys who had their next season canceled, I loved that Mark was saying that they just went back to work and they practiced even harder than it sounded like they ever have. And with that talent on that team, they just kept pushing each other, and they're here for a reason. And, I don't necessarily want to use the word like revenge or whatever, but they feel like, that they belong at the top of the charts here, and they want a rematch with North Central ultimately, and they have the opportunity to do that, but they also understand that to get there, they're going to have to beat a great team from Texas. It's in their home court. I know in the D3 football rankings that Technically, I guess Hardin-Baylor is number 2 and Whitewater is number 3. But in the way this tournament was seeded and how those things shook out, hey, Whitewater's the home team. That's going to help. It's going to be cold on Saturday, but not as cold as it was 2 years ago when apparently the field was like a sheet of ice with like 6 degrees or something like that. Global warming, I guess, or whatever. But anyway, it's going to be a fantastic defensive football game between two of the best defenses in the country, but two teams that have outstanding offenses too. It's going to be a great chess match, and I can't wait to see it.
Then on the other side of the bracket, here we go. This is where we get to talk about it. North Central at Mount Union. And, okay, I broke the news to you Saturday night. Before we get into the rationales, what was your reaction?
I don't know if I can pull this up fast enough. Let me see here. That's the reinstall. I was going to do the wah, wah, wah. I mean, how the hell did the committee think that this was a good idea, that this, the defending undefeated national champion should go on the road to defend their title? It is a total crock of something that, you would bleep. At the end of the day, I mean, you can't blame, Mount Union is not, they didn't have any control of this. It's like, they you can't blame them. You can't blame, anything other than this committee, which has made some cockamamie decisions this whole playoffs process. I mean, I will say, I'll give the RAC 2, the Region 2 RAC a little credit, because in retrospect, some of the decisions they made seemed to actually pan out. But the interpretation of the rules in certain times when they just blatantly ignored them on the national side is unbelievable. And behind the scenes, which I know you've been sort of privy to, prior committee members throwing current people under the bus is unbelievable. Like, what the hell is going on, man? Like, can't you just see the tournament and stick with the thing? Like, what is with this recalculation BS? Come on. End of the day, it is what it is. It's going to be a good game on Saturday in Ohio. It kind of sucks for the Cardinals and their families, which you'll hear about in a minute, but if anything, 2021 has become the year of broken, what did I call it earlier?
Broken criteria.
Broken criteria.
Yep.
Yes.
Let me give my 2 cents in here. I've kind of been, trying to give as much factual information as I can and a little bit of opinion to say this is why things are off the rails or why, people are upset ultimately. Now, let me explain my own feelings here. The NBA reseeds. Other sports leagues do reseed in their playoffs, but what they do not do ever is change the seeding in the first place. So you may have a team that goes 4-3 in a playoff series and one that goes 4-0 in a playoff series. And they don't take those wins and start moving around where everybody finished before the season or where they stand right now and say, oh, well, that 2 seed is now a 4 seed, so we'll flip things around and home field advantage turns. So even in major sports leagues where you reseed, you don't do this. You take a snapshot before the playoffs of where the teams are before the playoffs start and say, this is what we're going to live with for the playoffs, so that there's some level of certainty and predictability here of what's going to happen down the line. And the committee members you're talking about that reached out said just that. We knew who the first 4 were, and we knew what order they were in, so that if they all won, we knew who hosted. It was pretty easy at the end of the day. Hello? Well, here, they basically said, oh, we're going to recalculate. And when you recalculate a team that's had 3 playoff games versus one that has 2 playoff games, here's what happens. Your strength of schedule separates. When normally it narrows, it actually separates in this situation. So, Mount Union already had a small edge. That small edge got slightly bigger. And you also add a regionally ranked opponent. So now they have a 1-up in that column as well, that criteria. And so, okay, yeah, the numbers now say that Mount Union is the better team. Except these aren't the numbers we're supposed to be using. This is not a dynamic tournament. It's not supposed to be a dynamic tournament. And for that matter, we made a rule 10 years ago that said, in case you want to make it a dynamic tournament, stop. Because the defending national champion, at the very least, if not any other team that goes undefeated and had a playoff run the previous playoff year, deserves some level of sanctity and safety here. Okay? Consistency, integrity in the system. Where is it? And here's the problem. Here's the biggest problem that came out of all this. Every decision that was made, including Hardin-Simmons not being selected, including Linfield traveling to Mary Hardin-Baylor, including the question of who should be traveling to whom in the Whitewater Mary Hardin-Baylor situation, is now being questioned. And I got to be honest with you, because of the way things are playing out, some of the questions are actually pretty good questions. Some of the doubt is actually decent, reasoned doubt. And that's what you just did here. You opened Pandora's box for reasons we don't really understand. And the two things people have been saying over and over is that, or actually there's technically three. D3 hates North Central. We've heard that quite a bit. And, we don't.
We can't prove
Andrew Kamienski is a great speaker. We'll have him in a second here. Coach Thorne has joined us multiple times. We love having him on the show or to talk to him. Yeah, so it's not us, and it's not D3Football.com that hates him or anything like that. But maybe the powers that we do. I don't know. The way that this is playing out, you begin to wonder. Or you just penalize the team for a COVID cancellation, not in their control. You just penalized them. Basically said, the game isn't there, so the criteria matter when we recalculate, and, sorry, you got screwed by losing that game or losing it on your schedule. Well, that's great. Really? Because of player safety and health that you've been preaching for a year, you're going to use it to beat them over the head and send them on the road? Are you kidding me? Or, hey, Mount Union will sell a lot of tickets for Canton. So let's make sure they get there because fiscally, this tournament's probably underwater as it is with the number of flights that they are having. So we could really use a little shot in the arm here with this. Now, you know what? None of these are proven. But again, the NCAA didn't do a great job of squashing any of this. They didn't squash one bit of this week. Dewey Nat should have been out in front saying, listen, I want to be completely transparent on what happened here. And that didn't happen. So, North Central's on the road. And boy, are they going to get some motivation for this or from this ultimately. Andrew Kamienski, wide receiver, senior from North Central, joined us to talk about the game against RPI and much, much more, including this. Andrew, kind of an eventful Saturday. Let's talk about the high points first. And that RPI game obviously went fully in North Central's direction offensively. A great day for your team. Take us through that game. Obviously, RPI is one of those teams that can kind of bite you out of nowhere, that has 9 lives and all that stuff. What did you guys do to make sure offensively you would take care of them?
Just coming in, we knew right away we got to establish the run game. Our offensive line does a great job week in and week out to allow Ethan Greenfield and Terrence Hill to do what they do best. But we knew going in that we would be able to take our shots when we needed to, but we were pretty basic in our game plan this week, knowing that we can just come out and play our game and be able to handle what we needed to do.
Just out of curiosity, Andrew, what kind of CCIW team would you compare RPI to? I mean, obviously in the playoffs, you end up playing teams from all over the country. You guys are mostly familiar with the ones in Illinois and the Midwest. But what did the Engineers kind of remind you of, or who should I say?
Watching film, offensively, they reminded me a lot of University of Millikan with their size on the outside. They had that one tall receiver, just like Millikan did. I would compare them to more Millikan, like in University of Washington, St. Louis. They're a good football team. If they're a team where if you're not ready to come and play, they'll hang around and beat you. So we knew coming in, we had to come out and be first snap ready, and like we've been the last couple of weeks.
So, okay, we put away the win on Saturday. Everybody, including at Mount Union, because I was there, assumed people would be traveling to Naperville. I was checking out flights myself, and then all of a sudden, I understand you may have been the person to tell your coaching staff what was going on from the Twitter buzz that was going on. Take us through Saturday night and what your emotions were when you found out that you're going to be on the road this coming Saturday to Alliance.
Yeah, so I was just scrolling through Twitter after the game. I was actually with our other receiver, Blake Williams. We were sitting there watching the University of Michigan game, and we were just hanging out, and I see a tweet that Mount Union had tweeted, and it was that we had to go to them, and we both looked at each other like, wait a second, how is this right? And I called my head coach right away. I'm like, okay, Coach Jeff, what is this? I thought we would be home throughout, and it was just more of a shock to us. Not that it matters to us. It doesn't matter where we play. It was just kind of a stab in the back. Like, okay, what more do we need to do to show everybody or to get a home game throughout the entire playoffs? And why do we have to go back there? But it doesn't matter to us. We're more upset about all the fans that were planning on traveling to North Central to come and see us play there. But it doesn't matter where we play.
Yeah, well, I mean, this game 2 years ago was one of the most exciting D3 games in a long time. I know you guys have probably had this one circled, or were hoping that you'd get, a rematch of sorts, because to make it to the national championship, you usually have to beat a team like a Mount Union or a Whitewater or what have you. As you guys start looking at this year's Raiders team, what are some of the similarities and differences that you guys see, at least early on?
Early on, I mean, for me, watching their secondary, it's very, very similar to last year. I think, everybody returned except for maybe one guy. So just early on, it's been real similar to last year. I mean, they're a great football team. Obviously, they're historically a great football team, and we're excited for the challenge.
So you've got Luke Lennon, I believe is the correct pronunciation. We've been struggling with this all season long, so we'll go with that. Yep. Brock Rutter, who I saw pipe in a little bit about the hosting controversy on Saturday, obviously graduated onto other things in life, and we hope he's doing well. But Luke has come in here, and the question was, well, you lose Rutter, how do you recover from a loss like that at quarterback? And I know you were close with Brock. I saw you guys obviously at the Stag Bowl a couple of years ago, and kind of best of friends out there. How does this work? What is your relationship with Luke like, and how has he matured in this season in your eyes?
Luke's a great kid. Me and him have an awesome relationship as well, and that stems back to not playing in 2020. We were able to practice together, have those kind of one-on-one reps together through practice, and then just working out through school. But he's a very, very mature kid for 19 years old. He understands the game well. He wants to get better. Me and him watch film together every day. He wants to be in this position. He knew coming in that the position was wide open, and he attacked it like he was the starter for 3 years. So just seeing that from him and the maturity level that he's brought since week one, and how he's gotten better and how he understands our offense now, it's awesome to see, and I'm glad that I've been able to help him through it. He's going to be a terrific football player for 3 more years here.
Well, Andrew, first off, I want to say congrats on being named a Gagliardi semifinalist. That's when you look at the names on that list, what a collection of great athletes and people to be associated with. So congrats on that. For those keeping score at home, this guy was the national leader in receptions and yards in 2019. But I'm going to sort of turn the tables on you a little bit, Andrew. Because it's interesting. We know a lot about the Andrew Kamienskis. We know about the quarterbacks and the Greenfield and all the offensive names at North Central. But you practice against this North Central defense on a daily basis, and it seems to me like maybe some of those guys on that squad don't have as high a national profile as they probably should, given what they've been able to accomplish this year. You go up against your secondary in practice. The kind of players you have back there. Tell us a little bit about this Cardinals defense that seems to have been, pun intended, flying under the radar for a while here.
Yeah, they definitely been flying under the radar to most of the country, but to us, it's no surprise what they're doing. They work hard every day. They're extremely talented. They're extremely knowledgeable of the game. They're coached tremendously by our defensive coordinator Shane Durking, and they just come to work and they attack that mindset of everybody looks over them. Everybody always compliments our offense, that we're the number one scoring offense, that our offense does this, that our offense does that. So they kind of just get overlooked, but they enjoy that. They want that. They don't want everyone to say, "Oh, they're a top 5 defense in the country. They do this, they do that." They want to be overlooked so that when the Saturday comes and then they're punching people in the mouth, they're like, "Okay, now everyone realizes that they're not just a good offense; that they also have a top 5 defense in the country."
Talk about you, Andrew. Coming off a national championship type of situation in 2019, and then what we went through in 2020, you didn't need to necessarily come back to prove anything this year. You decided in the road that you traveled here to come back to play hard. I believe you have a Hula Bowl invitation as a result of all this. Take us through your decision-making process after 2019 and after what COVID delivered to us to come back and do this again.
So when I got the call from Coach Thorne when our 2020 season had been canceled, it was a no-brainer for me right away. I said, "Coach, well, I'm just going to take the year off of school because of my credits and all that allowed me to." And I was coming back. It was a no-brainer for me, and it wasn't because of the opportunity after college. It was to go one more round with my teammates, with my brothers, and go back to back. I didn't think about all the stuff that I could have after college. It was nothing to do with that at all. It was just to play one more season with my boys.
What would it mean to you guys? I mean, to even win a national championship in D3, if you're not named, Mount Union or Whitewater or whatever, has been hard for lots of programs to do. You guys have the opportunity, if you win Saturday, to play, for a second consecutive title. What would that opportunity mean to you and your teammates?
It would mean everything. It just not only for myself, but just the program at North Central, just what it would do to just recruiting for us, and then just to be maybe put into that conversation of, oh, now North Central can compete and be in the semifinals with Mount Union, Whitewater, Mary Hardin-Baylor year in and year out. Like that's what Coach Jeff wanted to establish when he got here. That's what his dad wanted to, and that's what we're all playing for. It's not we're not playing for this year. We're playing for everybody that came before us. For Coach Jeff's dad, whose major dream was to make North Central a national championship caliber program, and now that we're there, we just have to take care of business. It's been fun, and can't wait for this Saturday.
One of my best memories on the field after the game in 2019 was seeing John Thorne and talking to him, the emotion that he had and the pride he had in his son and the team and everything else. So it was a huge moment for him. Hope he's doing well. Andrew, what's next for you? After the season's done, you have maximum, obviously, 2 games left here. What's next for you along the way? As I mentioned earlier, the Hula Bowl coming up, maybe a time to showcase there. Is a pro football career something that you'd like to pursue?
It's definitely something that I'm going to look forward in pursuing. I'll lucky enough to sign with an agent. I haven't decided that yet on who that's going to be, and then participate in the Hula Bowl and hopefully pursue a career in professional football.
That would be great. Well, I know first things first, Andrew. You need to get a second really sweet hoodie like the one you got on there. That's the first step, right? That's a good looking hoodie. So if you've seen our program before, then you might know what's coming up. We like to give all of our student athlete guests the opportunity to shout out any friends, family, whoever might be tuning in to catch this interview. So the floor is yours, Andrew Kamienski. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I'm going to shout out my mom and dad for everything that they do, my twin brother out in Arizona, and then I'm going to shout out the Naperville community, and then also the rest of my family, cousins, grandparents, and everybody that supported me through everything, and also my best friends and my teammates.
Before we go, though, twin brother's name is?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, you got a great twin out there. Good luck to you, Andrew. Kamienski, his numbers are not as good as they were in 2019, but there's a reason for that, JV. You double team a guy like him, no doubt.
Well, and that's what's something happening. Else, Frank. It's something else. We'll get into this maybe on Friday, but when I was doing the annual, well, it's been a 2-year break or a break for whatever, the sort of annual in the huddle tail of the tape, the biggest thing that stood out to me when you look at the statistics on North Central is that their rushing totals this year have literally gone up by 100+ yards per game, to the extent now that they are almost really more of a rushing team. I don't want to give away any company secrets here, but they are out rushing the passing offense by 50 yards a game. And when they won the national title 2 years ago, it wasn't the same deal. They were a passing team. So, yeah, teams got wise to Kamienski. They got wise to a few other things going on. They have a freshman quarterback now. It's not Brock Rutter, who, flirted with the NFL for a little while, and we wish him well. And he was an outstanding player, one of the best quarterbacks in D3 you've seen in a while. But, man, this is a running football team, and Greenfield is going to be a big factor in this game against Mountain Union, especially when you look at Mountain Union's rush defense, which they did a pretty good job against Muhlenberg too. So something's got to give Saturday.
Terrence Hill as well. We always see him in these box scores, scoring touchdowns on the ground too. So you've got a couple different players there that are going to be effective on the ground for North Central. But, Kamienski kind of helping a freshman quarterback mature, that is a huge thing right there. You can't even bottle that. If you could, you would out there and sell it, to coaches all over the country, because they'd love to have that. And like we said, still catching touchdowns despite the double teams that we know were happening all throughout the season with Kamienski. That's how good he is. That's why he was invited to the Hula Bowl. Let's not kid ourselves here. But then he's somebody that knows very well about double teams going on downfield, because he probably loved to throw to Wayne Ruby Jr. all day, every day, but teams have gotten pretty keen to Ruby over the last couple of weeks especially, and Ruby still has caught some great passes and touchdowns in that process.
Absolutely,
but Braxton Plunk, the quarterback, junior quarterback for Mount Union, has had an interesting calendar year, to say the least. The number of games they too have played is incredible, and the maturation that it has allowed him, I should say, is second to none. And in his own words, here is Braxton Plunk.
Braxton, a couple times in these playoffs, you've been in sort of a surprising situation where Mount Union is actually trailing in the game. You guys got down 21-9 against a very strong Muhlenberg team. Their defense was keying in on you pretty well. What did you say to your teammates in the huddle, or what was going on in the sidelines that kind of got you guys to turn things around and really help your offense open up for that big win?
No, I think everybody was pretty calm and composed. Definitely the leadership of some of the fifth-year and sixth-year guys that came back, just them being poised and realizing, are still, just taking it one play at a time. And the coaches did a great job at keeping everybody calm. And I think we all just kind of trusted each other, and we had to, start to play better. I had to play better on my part and quit turning the ball over. And then once we got that, we got rolling.
So, one of the things that I've been noticing, and others have too, offensively, is kind of the balance between DeAndre Parker, who's a phenomenal running back, and Josh Petroselli, who's got the experience out there over the years. We always joke about Jefferson Fritz at UMHB. It feels like Petroselli's been there forever too at Mount Union. But the balance in terms of number of rushes, downs, etc., and almost like you guys count on him for late game heroics of sorts. That 53-yard touchdown on Saturday being one of those moments that I could key in on, and obviously a lot more than just that. What is your relationship, and what is the offense's view of Petro and what he is going to be used for here going down the line, and how do you feel about it?
Right, no, both those guys are great athletes, and they've made a lot of great plays for us this year. They've done a lot of great things. Both of them can catch the ball out of the backfield, and they both run hard. But I think they both just kind of learned from each other. Petro, I think he made a joke a couple days, or today or yesterday, like it's going to be like his 60th or 61st game playing. So his experience helps in his leadership, and I think him and DeAndre just kind of feed off each other, and they both play exceptionally well for us.
Well, Braxton, something that's been really unusual in sort of the post-COVID timeframe is that you've effectively kind of played an NFL season, so to speak. I mean, you guys are 17-0 in 2021. You had 4-game sort of short spring season. What any lessons from that kind of spring season that you guys brought into this fall and has playing 17 games in this calendar year had an impact on the team? How's everybody holding up health-wise?
No, everybody's good. We're extremely grateful to have those games in the spring. We were happy to get any football in, but I think they were great learning lessons, especially for younger players that we had on the offensive line that maybe hadn't played that much, and myself and a few guys that didn't have the experience. I think those 4 games in the spring really helped us out. But as of right now, everybody feels great, and we're really just kind of keeping on this game.
Well, speaking of pro football schedules, you want to get to the Pro Football Hall of Fame about a week and a half from when we're recording this. And there's this team coming to town named North Central. And while you weren't quarterback in the last time the teams played, you obviously remember the game from a couple of years ago. And needless to say, with not getting into all the jazz from this weekend, there's a chip on the shoulder on their side. There's a revenge factor on your side. This lines up very interestingly like a really great game forming here. And obviously the talent on both sides of the ball for both teams is incredible. Tell us about what you see in terms of that North Central defense. How tough are they to get that ball down the field on?
They're a really good team. They have good players and good coaches, and we're pretty sure they'll be ready to go. But I think our focus is just kind of us doing our job, regardless of who we play or where we play or what time we play. So we're just kind of focusing on what we do today and Monday practice, and just kind of focus on our job.
Well, one of your defensive players, Cordell Ford, had joined us in the springtime, and he was pretty adamant that the big reason why guys like him and others stuck around for this sort of extra fall season was the opportunity to face North Central again. I don't know if we'll see over 100 points scored, but with you dropping back to pass about 56 times a game, it seems. I mean, geez. It looks like this game could have a potential to be a full-on air raid here, but I guess from your perspective, are game plans really you guys really want to throw the ball a lot, or is it basically you're just going to tailor it to the specific opponent, or is there sort of a Mount Union style of offense that you guys are going to do no matter who you play?
No, I think just whatever the team may give us that week, or Coach Dart does a great job in preparing us, and all our coaches give us confidence and prepare us Monday through Friday, and then we try to do our best out there Saturday, whether that's passing the ball or running the ball. We've got great players everywhere. Obviously we have great receivers in Wayne Ruby, but Harvey and Manley and all those guys and Euless have made a lot of great plays, and then you guys touched on Petroselli and DeAndre earlier. So they've a lot of good playmakers, so we just got to do a good job in getting them the ball. And
it's been a little while since Mount Union has won a national championship by Mount Union standards, obviously. What was it, 2017, I think, give or take, the last time. And, a guy like you were a phenomenal prospect coming out of high school. You look back on Google, which is a fabulous thing for historical purposes. And, Braxton Plunk was a name that a lot of people were saying down in the Florida area. But obviously, guys like you come to a school like Mount Union with the prospect of the national stage, the national championship, etc. But let me not put words into your mouth. You tell us, what was the overriding decision-making process for you to choose Mount Union ultimately, and how do you feel about the choice right now as a junior?
No, I definitely love the choice. Love the players and the teammates. I think that's kind of the thing that makes it the best. It's just the players, and the guys around and the coaches that really care about you. But I think that what makes you want to come here is when you first type in Mount Union, and it is the national championships that they've won. We have to live up to that standard, and I think that standard it's going to take us just focusing on this game, and not looking ahead.
Well, Braxton, I want to be one of the first to say good luck with the the Ghilardi semifinalist thing. I know that to just be in that kind of company is impressive in and of itself. So congratulations on that. For folks who don't know, you're from down here in Florida, like where I'm at, the Tampa area, Plant High School, I believe. So, does anybody on the Raiders ever refer to you as Tom Brady, or do you get any a hard time from some of the older guys because you're like Tampa Tom here, leading this high-powered offense?
No, I wish. No, I get a lot of short jokes because I'm undersized. Here, the Doug Flutie, but the short jokes. But no, I wish it was Tom Brady. He's doing a great job. He played really good yesterday.
As an undersized quarterback, who do you look up to in the pros? Is it like the Drew Breeses, Russell Wilsons? Who do you pattern yourself after or have molded yourself toward, knowing that kind of there's this undersized quarterback thing you have to get past, which you've done quite well, don't get me wrong.
I think you just kind of look up to all of them, try to take as much as you can. Obviously, those guys are great players. Just to make it to the NFL, you have to be a great player. I think, but you see a lot more shorter guys in the NFL now. It seems like all those guys can kind of run well, but you just got to take, some things from everybody, I guess.
Well, Braxton, this has been a lot of fun. I know you've got a lot of work ahead of you this week in the film and practice room. But as a longstanding in the Huddle tradition, and we've had a few Purple Raiders on the show over the years, so we're now extending the courtesy to you to do any shout outs for any, maybe friends or family down here in Florida or other, teammates up there in Ohio or elsewhere. Braxton, Plunk, floor is yours.
I think I'm part of the team. I think we just want to shout out all the former Raiders, all the people that have came before us and built this program. We want to do everything we can to make them proud. So we appreciate them.
Plunk was our offensive player of the season in the spring, as you may remember, and we didn't get a chance to talk with him back then, but great to catch up with him for our discussion here. And we didn't ask him much about the hosting rights and all that stuff because, again, this isn't Mount Union's fault, and it's not Mount Union to say no to this, okay? So that's why it doesn't belong in that interview or that discussion. They're going to take what they get, and they're going to try their best in a game that a lot of people think they're going to lose and possibly lose big, which is very awkward to say about a Mount Union team. Is reverse motivation possible here? The more people say that?
Well, I think it is when you look back on, the conversations we've had with, senior co-captains, Cordell Ford, and there's a pretty large fifth-year senior class that came back specifically for this rematch. They were embarrassed that they lost to North Central, and not only lost, but they gave up 59 points to the eventual new national champions. And the Raiders are trying to get back on top of the heap. And yeah, this could be a little extra added, fuel to the fire for the Raiders who, maybe from your experience in Alliance, few things didn't look as buttoned up as maybe as you've seen in years past, but still, as much of a chip on the shoulder as NCC has, and deservedly so, Mountain Union has also been waiting for 2 years to get 2 years plus because they got eliminated, I think, in the second round in 2019 in that game. They've been waiting a long time for this rematch, and this is going to be a big deal for the Raiders for sure.
If nothing else from these 4 interviews, I think we painted you storylines of unfinished business and, rematches or familiarity with the teams and not hatred, but respect, honestly, of how good these teams are and what they really want to do here in terms of getting to the national championship. We have 4 teams here, and all 4 of them, they were the top 4 in the D3Football.com top 25 for a reason. And they all have a chance and a right to be in that national championship on December 17th. Who's going to get there? We'll predict that this Friday on our live show. So until then, folks, thanks for joining us. Thanks to all the sports information directors that helped us get these interviews together. JB, thank you for all your hard work to help pull that all together. and we will talk to you Friday, folks. In between, don't forget to watch out for our Glory finalist show on Thursday afternoon.